If the government messes with your property, you can get compensation. What if what they're messing with is underground, trying to accurately count how many Coloradans are homeless, right as the city of Denver is driving them out of visible places? Senator Cory Gardner offers an apology, a hilariously awesome apology. Now that Colorado has wolves, an ex-viewer wonders what they're eating, and an unassuming house that's full of history. We'll take you there next. Mess with people's property and they get pokey. Let's say the state needed to build a highway and took part of your backyard. You might not be able to stop it, but you'd at least get paid. How about what's underneath your property? Here's politics guy Marshall Zellinger.
Even through the low clouds, you can see DIA from it. You can see Gaylord. But what you can't see from this property in Aurora is what's underneath it.
In conjunction with the surface of the property, we've also owned the mineral rights since basically statehood.
William Windler's family has owned the land in eastern Aurora for 140 years, and that includes the rights to the minerals beneath it, which means if an oil and gas company wants to extract it, but the city, county, or state doesn't allow it, he's missing out on money, and the government does not owe him a thing.
I don't think that it's unreasonable for any citizen to request payment from a government when they deny or take your property away or do not allow you to use your property.
This is my probably fourth or fifth time that I have stood for mineral right owners and property right owners.
Republican State Representative Perry Buck is also a mineral rights owner in Weld County, where a conservative county commission is not getting in the way of oil and gas development. Once again today, she tried and failed to get lawmakers to agree that if local government gets in the way of someone making money from their mineral rights, the local government should pay them and the oil and gas company.
It's a property right argument. If they're going to put a highway in your front yard, because they believe that highway is so important, we got to get that highway, and you're going to be compensated for them using your front yard. So this is no different.
I asked Buck why include an oil and gas company in this bill, with the idea being maybe lawmakers could feel bad for a property owner, but not necessarily an oil and gas company. And Kyle, I learned it's not that clean, that oil and gas companies get into leases with property owners ahead of time. And so there's already money that's exchanged hands, and then there's even more money once they start extracting. So you can't necessarily separate the two.
So this is an interesting idea to debate, but it's coming from a Republican, so it's just toast, right?
We talked about it being dead on arrival, and it died today. The one thing, it didn't go to the kill committee. It actually went to the committee that should hear something like this. So that's the
appropriate committee.
The appropriate committee.
Okay. All right.
And then died.
All right. I like your sweater.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Colorado has the death penalty, which, as you know, the state does not use, and it's likely to be overturned by a bipartisan group of state legislators this year. Debate began today without Colorado's best-known supporter of capital punishment, Democratic Senator Rhonda Fields of Aurora. Her son's killer is on death row. She told us she is choosing to wait to speak until the bill reaches the full Senate.
I still have my arguments from last year, so I'll be using that as a foundation, and I'll probably refresh it. But basically, I'm just going to be saying that I believe the people of Colorado should decide if we should have the death penalty or not.
And we're closely watching how Senator Fields feels about the process of the death penalty repeal. You remember, last year, Democrats could not gather the votes to do it, in part because their colleague, Senator Fields, says she felt disrespected by the way the bill was rushed through the legislature. People are trying to count the number of Coloradans who are homeless, right as Mayor Hancock's administration is taking aggressive action to drive them out of visible places in the city. You can see how that would complicate the count. Here's Steve Steger.
We go out with volunteers and try to locate people who are experiencing homelessness. And we ask them where they slept the night before.
They do it every year on one night in January. The annual point-in-time survey of the homeless gathers data to figure out where resources are needed.
It should give us a sense of, are we seeing trends of homelessness among youth or among veterans?
Kathy Alderman with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless says that's why the current climate in Denver makes her a little nervous about this year's count. The city is currently enforcing its camping ban amid an appeal of a judge's ruling that the ban is unconstitutional.
It might mean that people are going to be a little less trusting of volunteers and of people that may look official in some capacity. And so our volunteers may have to work a little bit harder to get people to answer the survey.
The alderman says more volunteers have signed up to help with the count. She says the data gathered is important because it will show Denver's homelessness goes far beyond the visible.
I think it can tell us that there are many more people outside, sleeping outside, experiencing homelessness than we generally see.
Last year's count found nearly 4,000 people without homes in the city. Homeless advocates hope the perspective helps move the debate.
But I think that it can change the conversation and force us to start talking about solutions instead of this, back and forth on camping ban or no camping ban.
For Next, I'm Steve Stager.
Last year's survey found a pretty concerning number of young people are homeless in Denver. Last year's study also had some encouraging news. There's stabilization in the number of people who are chronically homeless. And Alderman says that she thinks that's because of Denver's social impact bonds, which are paying for housing. So last week we told you about the woman who has a really similar phone number to Senator Cory Gardner's office. And she's been getting a lot of fiery phone calls lately. And she got one great one last weekend. Laura from Grand Lake says she has been getting calls meant for Gardner for years. But now that there's pressure on Gardner to join a small group of possible Republican defectors on impeachment, well, Laura's phone is ringing off the hook. And let's just say some of the callers about Gardner are less than polite. But not one.
My husband answers it, and he brings the phone down to me, and he's like, "It's Cory Gardner." And of course, I'm like, "Shut up, it is not." And Mr. Gardner is like, "Hi, Laura, I saw the spiel and on my news, and I want to apologize." And he just said, "We'd like to make it up to you. I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He was very nice, and I was very, very surprised that he would call on a Saturday.
All right, that is very classy. All of us here on the Spiel on 9 News thought that was a really nice move by Senator Gardner. Saturday was a work day for the Senate as President Trump's defense team presented its case in the impeachment trial. A few Republican senators are suggesting today that they would like to hear from former National Security Advisor John Bolton. National media report that Bolton's upcoming book says that President Trump directly linked aid for Ukraine with investigations into Joe Biden's family. Still nothing from Gardner on that. Democratic Senator Michael Bennet, of course, he's always happy to talk about this.
The president has utter contempt for Congress, I think for the American people, but we knew that. The question for the senators is, how much contempt do we have for ourselves? How much contempt do we have for our institution?
You will often hear national media talk about Senator Gardner as a possible swing vote for witnesses. As we've explained here, Gardner's given no indication that he is going to defy the White House's wishes for a quick trial. I did not get into genealogy to learn about the living. I wanted to climb up my family tree in search of heroes and horse thieves. Found some of both. But the most remarkable thing I discovered was not ancient history. It was something I didn't know about my grandmother, who we lost last week at the age of 94. She was a private lady, so I will honor that. And I'll just say that when you research family history, you will find that all sorts of struggles are passed down from generation to generation to generation. And once in a rare while, somebody comes along who defies the odds, someone who creates an unexpectedly strong branch in a family tree. My grandmother's wonderful marriage, her excellent health, her financial sense, they were all a testament to her sheer will to defy history and to reshape her family tree. It changed the lives of all of us who followed. My grandmother was humble and hilarious. On her last night, she had us and her doctors cracking up. Someone said, "You have a gift." She gave her sly smile and said, "I have many gifts." Yes, Grandma. Yes, you did.
Their families went through the unimaginable.
Half of my family died in concentration camps, okay? And all of my cousins.
A photographer has made it his mission to capture their resilience and courage while they're still here. And there's something about this little house. Remarkable people lived in it, one after another. So what to do with it? Next.
Finally, some much needed moisture for our state. A light dusting of snow up to an inch down around Parker, Aurora, and out toward DIA. Measurable snowfall, 0.13 inches of moisture out there at the official observation station, while downtown Denver hasn't seen more than just a few snowflakes. We do have winter weather driving conditions on I-70 tonight with a winter weather advisory out until 11. Temperatures held in the 30s for much of the day, but our high, well, we actually managed 41 in spite of that cloud cover. This system is quickly moving out. The next one already on the way. Another chance for snow on Wednesday. The advisories for snow remain in our northern mountains for 3 to 6 inches total there around Steamboat. We're seeing some light snow pushing south and east of the metro area. Again, about an inch on the ground, and the potential that we'll see a little bit more out around Burlington and Ray during the overnight period. But then skies will clear. We're on our way to a beautiful day tomorrow, and then the next storm and next chance for snow. And so in Denver for tonight, snow showers early and then clearing, low 24. Tomorrow with sunshine, highs warmer, close to 50. 30% chance of snow on Wednesday, and then a nice warming trend heading into next weekend. February, a new month, a new weather pattern. We've got 60s on the map for Saturday and Sunday, Kyle.
Our next question comes from a viewer named Tom, curious about the wolf pack seen in northwest Colorado. Colorado Parks and Wildlife came across the wolves' dinner. Tom emailed us, hey, do us a favor and find out what kind of animal the wolves that were recently observed by CPW were feeding on.
They were snacking on an elk, Tom. Have you ever had that elk jerky? They sell it at those stands at the airport out on the concourses. It's great. CPW says it discovered the wolf-chewed elk carcass near Irish Canyon in Moffat County earlier this month. CPW says that it also found a second wolf snack, and this one is going to anger opponents of the plan to forcibly reintroduce wolves to Colorado, because CPW says they have evidence that wolves also ate a cow in Moffat County. Carcasses are a first on our next question segment, but nothing is off limits, so where do we go next? Email your next question to next@9news.com or hit us up on Twitter with the hashtag HeyNext. History, of course, does not just happen in capitals and courthouses. A lot of the people who shape our state live in our neighborhoods, maybe in your home. There's one modest house in Denver that was home to a whole string of greats. And in the next half hour, City Council will decide if the home should be protected as a landmark. Anusha Roy takes us there.
A new fence is going up to protect an old North Park Hill home that's almost unassuming from the outside.
I don't know what it is about this property,
but looks aren't everything.
Really quite remarkable.
Jenny Butenborg with the City of Denver has never seen a home with this kind of history, because somehow this relatively unremarkable home attracted some remarkable people. She learned about them through an application to designate the house historic, starting with the developer Charles Marble Kittredge, who built the home and then lived here from 1911 to 1915.
He also developed the Kittredge building downtown that many of us know as 16th and Glen Arm.
He helped build the neighborhood while designing houses with a health epidemic in mind.
And many people found that Colorado's climate was very conducive to people healing from tuberculosis.
Kittredge moved out in 1915. 5 years later, a lawyer, Charles Ginsburg, moved in and started fighting a different battle.
Spent a lot of his career fighting the KKK. And at that time in Colorado, there was a lot of influence by the KKK on local and state political leadership.
Decades later, by chance, William Forrest, an inventor, was also attracted to this home in 1971 and made a name for himself in true Colorado fashion.
Best-selling snowshoes that Mountain Safety Research sold called the Denali snowshoe.
Why they all moved here might just be luck, but it was the current owner's diligence in researching their home that the city even knows about this history.
That would be a good nickname for the building, actually, Colorado Spirit.
Or next, I'm Anusha Roy.
And you know the deal with those historic designations. If the home gets it, it can't be demolished.
He's trying to tell their stories before they're gone.
These folks, not only did they suffer, but they maintained their faith. And they went on to lead happy and successful lives.
Portraits of Colorado's Holocaust survivors. Next.
The Soviets liberated Auschwitz 75 years ago today. A few thousand survivors were still there. Of course, the world has a dwindling number of Holocaust survivors all these decades later. People like Aussie Sladek, who lives in Colorado. Those survivors are honored through the lens of a photographer named Wayne Armstrong. His exhibit, called Abide, is currently at the Meisel Museum. Our Byron Reed visited.
So we are in an exhibit called Abide, where a person can come and actually sort of abide in this very somber space where a lot of survivors reside.
My actual name is Oscar. My nickname was Ossie, so everybody knows me as Ossie. I was born in Slovakia in 1935.
We can really read the stories and see the people that are affected, survivors that live in the Denver area.
I grew up in a Jewish middle-class family. My parents had a store.
In your mind's eye, picture them at 90 years old, where they were at 5 or 6 years old when they were actually surviving the Holocaust.
I was a very scared person when I was young, because I knew that there is this monster who was speaking over the radio.
So what you're seeing here is a combination, what I call conceptual photography.
They seized our bank accounts, they took away our businesses. My parents' business was taken away. Most of my family died in Auschwitz. By us avoiding being picked up and sent away, we were actually fugitives of the law.
It's to remind the next generation of the Holocaust, and what a better way to do it than to say, hey, these people are still walking amongst you.
This is a real special exhibit. Somebody made me look like John Wayne.
The exhibit is relevant today because of the rise in anti-Semitism, the racism, the bigotry.
And I see these people, and that's really how I remember them.
A black ribbon denotes all the folks here in the exhibit that have passed away since I photographed them.
We are dwindling very fast. You know, we are all in our 80s, and a number of them in the 90s already.
And make you say to yourself, what can I do with what I've got and the blessings that I've had to shine a light on the folks that are less fortunate? In a very short while, we won't have a lot of these folks around to be able to ask and to be able to talk to. So I want people to know that this resource is there for them.
This is a real special exhibit, and what he was trying to do is to show these people just as average human beings.
Yes, to remember and then to act to fight hate. We return with something that I have been told not to comment on. We'll see how that goes next. It is time for another edition of our sometimes challenging segment called Presented Without Comment. The San Miguel Sheriff's Office tweeted that Highway 145 today was blocked by a, quote, large boulder the size of a small boulder. But for real though, you notice nobody says medium anymore. I mean, that was obviously a medium-sized boulder, but emergency responders, they don't use the word medium. I mean, you'll hear them talk about like a large fire or a small avalanche. Medium, nothing though. They're never like, oh, there's a medium amount of flooding, avoid that area. And on the news, do we say medium? We never talk about medium. We talk about like big problems and small issues. Nothing's ever medium. I mean, have you ever heard me say, oh, you know, that senator, he's in a medium amount of political trouble? We should bring medium back. That was a medium-sized boulder. I will find something to describe tomorrow night as medium. It would appear that we are out of time for your feedback. I'm not sure how that happened and presented without comment. That was a medium-sized error. See you next time.